As network operators expand and cloudify their networks, evolve their 5G strategies, and seek new business opportunities, so the edge becomes an ever more important part of their service delivery arsenal. But what are these opportunities and what are the key innovations underway at the edge of the network? Well, to find out, I have three expert guests with me today, and they are Caroline Chan, VP, Network and Edge Group General Manager, Network Business Incubator Division at Intel; Rupesh Chokshi, VP of Product Strategy and Innovation at AT&T; and Manish Mangal, Global Business Head, 5G and Network Services at Tech Mahindra. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. So let's get some opening views from you all. As respected leaders in the telco industry, what does intelligent edge mean to you? And what innovations can the market expect in the edge space in the coming years? So Rupesh, let's come to you first.
I think the definition of the intelligent edge has, rapidly evolved, right? I think we're in the golden age where the networks, the applications, the modernization is all sort of happening and coming together. The way we are thinking about it is that at a simplest level, there is a customer edge and a network edge. And as we think about, 5G powered enterprises, it's going to be very important that the compute, the storage, the application, the data, and the networking capabilities sort of, with the 5G networks, come together to deliver the low latency experiences, deliver the next generation of the application experiences that are needed. And it's tying back to the massive shift that is happening in terms of, autonomous everything. If you think about healthcare, if you think about manufacturing, if you think about automotive, a lot of different use cases that are all powered by the network edge, the customer edge, and bringing the sort of the compute, the storage, the application, the data flows together with the 5G networks. And that is where we see tremendous amount of opportunities, innovations. In fact, when I speak with developers, they're talking about, hey, we're already thinking of how do we write the applications for a distributed edge architecture, right? So they're taking the network characteristics as part of their application architecture and security at the core of it. Again, not to belabor that point, but the idea is that networking, security, compute, storage, applications coming together.
Okay, excellent. And great to hear that the developer community is getting on board here. And Caroline, what does intelligent edge mean to you?
What I would just add on a little bit is that we've seen the edge really proliferated. We have the network edge, but we also see on-prem edge, like retail shops in the factory itself. Sometimes because of legality, these data needs to be monetized and stored locally. And then you also have the colo edge. But I think in this conversation, we're really focusing on the network edge and what can 5G network provide for our developers. One thing that really comes up very distinctly, especially recently, is that AI becomes the really a huge pillar. The enterprises that want to consume 5G, want to consume the edge, many times are driven by the principle of AI. Like, how do I gain the machine learning, data analytics in real time and in contextual data, such that I can do this closed loop automation, which then become autonomous edge that we just talked about. So intelligent edge is compute, it's storage, it's driven a lot of times by the need to drive artificial intelligence. And a lot of the fundamentals are being enabled because now we have a much more software-driven network, right? In the past, it's a very appliance, but we have, in the last 10, 15 years, we've done this network transformation, really started enabling the intelligent edge that we are here talking about.
Okay, great. Thanks, Caroline. And Manish, what does the intelligent edge mean to you?
It's in the words intelligence and edge. Edge, by definition, means that we are moving something closer and closer to the customer. And as Rupesh and Caroline already mentioned, that it's really about taking it closer to the customer with regards to the compute, storage, security, infra, all of them coming together, whether for the network edge or for the customer edge. But if I kind of look at the intelligent edge as a concept and say fundamentally what we are looking to do is getting the three layers established. One is the infrastructure layer, which is compute, storage, and the networking. Get that optimized by getting the compute and storage closer and closer to the customer and making the network very reliable by pushing it all the way to the customers. So not just in an enterprise world at the prem, but also taking private networks all the way closer to the customers in terms of how they use it. And customer here could be a computing device used by a human or a computing device that's used by or a machine or the factories and stores and stuff like that. So that's the one layer of infrastructure. Then the second layer is really where the intelligence sits. That's where you put all the data, you put all the analytics to be able to make decisions around what you can do. And the third layer is around applications, around how do you take advantage of this intelligence that you are putting it and the infrastructure that you are pushing it through. So to me, it's really all about edge getting closer to the customer and making it intelligence means that you are allowing the decisions to be made autonomously, remotely, and closer to the customer so that it's the dependencies on the back to the cloud is lesser and lesser, and you are able to actually run a lot more efficient local applications.
Now, what do CSPs need to do to be successful in supporting an intelligent edge architecture and the associated enterprise requirements? And how does this fit in with the network operator transformation strategies? Now, Rupesh, you're very well placed to answer this one first.
Sure. So I think we'll continue to build upon the theme on sort of the customer edge, the network edge, and we talked a little bit about my colleagues over here, Manish and Caroline, that there's different ways to kind of build this architecture, right? And I touched upon the whole developer friendly. The whole point is to make the network more programmable and make it available into the application layer. So the experiences are very different, right? If we just take on the whole concept of autonomous everything, right? When I go talk to the enterprise customers, what I hear again and again is, hey, I'm going to go make my retail store experience better, or I'm going to go mine out significant productivity in my warehouse operations or in my manufacturing. Or, hey, can I deliver a better patient experience when they are in the hospital? Or can this sort of, transportation industry be really sort of, disruptive with more and more assisted and automated, vehicles, etc. So when you start to think about the requirements from the customers and their needs and how they're tying it back to their business outcomes, fundamentally, it's about kind of building the software-defined networking layer that is easily programmable, and it is available to the application developers, available to the hyperscalers, available to the SaaS platform providers in a way that the end user experience or the end machine experience is very, very differentiated, very focused on the performance characteristics of that application. And we have a lot of work happening in the industry at AT&T to sort of continue to move in that direction. The one thing that we learned over the pandemic was connectivity was mission critical, right? It became sort of the lifeline for everything that we were doing, whether it was a hybrid workforce, whether it was a remote workforce, to what we are seeing right now, where there is a lot more energy around sort of new use cases, and how does that innovation really get fueled. So I think investing in the software defined networking, virtualization, connecting all of that with the edge data, and the whole point Caroline made on the AI aspect is very important. If you want to be more and more autonomous, and if the autonomous has to deliver, AI is a methodology by which you need to continue to evaluate the data, keep getting better, right? So that's where the analytics, the software, but also the application layer with the network comes together. And that's how we're thinking about it.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, so many things interconnected here to make this a reality for everybody. Caroline, in your view, what do the CSPs need to be doing to take full advantage of the intelligent edge?
Really, everything that Rupesh just said. But there's one thing that is very much CSPs like AT&T controls. They have the network telemetry. If we are developing a mission critical applications, something like especially in the industrial side, any kind of autonomous operation, we need the kind of network telemetry only the CSPs can provide. So that is, I think, a critical element that developers need. But we've been working on this developer community, drawing them into the 5G, and more realize that they really want to treat this like App Store, like the way that iOS is running. So as much as we could provide API, or really, I keep using the word, hide the underlying network complexity, but present it in a way that you're really giving them the network telemetry, so allow them to develop their application more efficiently and more towards what they need to achieve. I think that will be a key differentiator that the CSP can provide. And just no one but the CSP can provide that.
Yeah, absolutely great point. And of course, that data is absolutely key to all of these real-time applications. And Manish, what do you think the CSPs need to focus on here?
Actually, Rupesh and Caroline answered extremely well. I was just thinking in the context of two things. One is, since we are talking about intelligent edge, there is a network edge and the customer edge that we spoke about. So if we look at in the context of the network edge, and how can CSPs take advantage of this network edge, which becomes the new way of deploying their own network, such that, you talk about Open RAN, and you can take the network architecture closer to your edge network and make it software defined, programmable. It gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of total cost of ownership and the operations of that network, which is on for your own consumption as a CSP. And that gives you a better profitability, more agility in bringing new feature functionalities for your customers. So that's a clear path in terms of adoption of network edge to deploy an end-to-end software defined cloud native network. When we look at from an enterprise perspective, I think there is a lot of innovation to be done there. And really, our mission and vision should be that we make the consumption of the infrastructure very, very easy. Enterprises are not used to buying very high touch infrastructures, right? Today, the demarcation of the infrastructure happens at the customer prem, and inside that, then we have a complex environment of Wi-Fi and bunch of other technologies, but typically they are unmanaged, and they are out there with a lot of complexities. So if we can drive, and CSPs can only do that because they have a end-to-end capability to be able to do that, and that's where we work with them in terms of how to drive this end-to-end network, which not only stops at the demarcation point for the enterprise, but goes all the way inside the enterprise through private networks, but has a highest level of degree of automation, such that the life cycle of from ordering services to the consuming services for the enterprise becomes a lot more easier. And hence, anybody who can build on top of it, just like the iOS and the device operating systems have been developed for the developer ecosystem to be able to use it. If we can achieve that from an infrastructure perspective, such that infrastructure becomes pervasive, programmable, and easy to consume by the enterprises, the developers as well as the enterprises will consume it extremely fast and well, and the innovation will be driven by the ecosystem rather than one or two entities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the dream, and that's where everybody's looking towards, of course. Now, technological advancements such as massive IoT, AR, VR, and the metaverse are all dependent on reliable, secure, high-speed networks and low latency. As the 5G era moves into its next phase, how are edge networks and cutting-edge applications coming together? What is the impact they are having on CSPs and enterprises? Manish, let's start with you on this one.
This is a brilliant opportunity for the industry, and we have been very bullish on this. We have been working very aggressively, very actively with the ecosystem partners in this one. The idea of taking the edge to the customer and opening a lot of ecosystem for applications to take advantage of that is real. It's now, and we are seeing a lot of traction in the market. And I think from a CSP's perspective, At the end of the day, the network is a fundamental underlying infrastructure, and Rupesh said it very well. It's a mission critical application. In the last 3 years, if we have seen during the pandemic, without the network, I think we all would have crumbled. The ability for the network to withstand that kind of a dramatic shift from the usage of connectivity in home or from enterprises into the home, and still the network stood very well. That's a testimony of how well designed the networks are and the role that networks play in our life. So as we fast forward that to exploit this opportunity of expanding that network, make it pervasive, make it almost invisible, so that anybody can use it all the time. And that's where the opportunity for the CSPs is. And application ecosystem, honestly, I believe that there is a lot of innovation out there in the market who are looking to create niche specific use cases, niche applications that create a specific enough value for enterprises or for the consumers. But if you give the infrastructure as a platform and open it up for somebody to innovate, the innovation cycle will continue and everybody will greatly benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rupesh, what kind of application innovation are you seeing as the networks become more distributed and 5G becomes more pervasive?
It's a great question, building upon what Manish mentioned, right? In terms of again, going back to the core of what the enterprises are looking to do is either there's a productivity efficiency play or there's an experience play with the clients or the users or the customers. And if you go take a look at the different industries, so let's talk about some examples, right? In the healthcare industry, we're seeing a lot of innovation driven by can I go about, utilizing computer vision as the ability to look at, the patients or the rooms or the training or the learnings on how can I get better and better utilizing that data, whether it is facial recognition for pain or knowing that there is an obstacle in the room or in the corridor, or even trying to find a certain important sort of device or equipment that is needed. So when you think about the opportunity that it possesses for having everything connected from an IoT perspective or 5G perspective, and then having the ability to really sort of deliver on the experience. If I'm doing facial recognition with computer vision, just the ability for the network to turn it all around, the compute at the edge of it, the data, all of the processing, you put AI, and boom, you're taking actions in sub-milliseconds, right? So fantastic innovation in that industry. Then you go on the other extreme and think about all of the entertainment that stadiums and big venues, etc. People are getting back into the soccer games and the NFL games and the NBA, etc. A tremendous amount of opportunity to really power up with 5G those sort of capabilities. And Manish touched a little bit upon private 5G and the network edge, and the combinations of these things are going to deliver very differentiated fan experiences that people are really wanting to really enjoy, so they can associate with the sport or the team, or just kind of immersive engagement and experiences, right? Then you go to transportation or you go to retail, you start to see more and more use cases, right? Transportation, as I mentioned before, a lot of conversations on software defined vehicles and autonomous or assisted vehicles, right? And it's not just what we see, a connected car on the road, but there's a lot of other things that happens in large warehouses, moving of automated guided vehicles, etc. So a lot of that is powered by the 5G network because of two fundamental drivers. One is the speed, second is the latency, and third is the security. So when you put all of that together, gives so much opportunity of innovation. Retail, I think, for all of us, right, the retail experiences are going to be very, very different over the next 2 to 3 years. And a lot of my kids' consumption and how they're doing is very interesting, because what we have seen on the AT&T network, we have surpassed 500 petabytes of data per day on an average day, is the amount of uplink information that is going on, right? So historically, it was a lot of download of videos, etc. But now we're seeing a lot more interactive, a lot more uplink type of data coming together. So innovations across all dimensions. I think the network and the edge is powering that.
Yes, the traffic patterns are certainly starting to change. And Caroline, what are you seeing in the market as high data throughputs and low latency come together at the edge of the network?
And for Intel, we look at it in addition to what Manish and Rupesh just said, we also seen it as a significant digital transformation opportunity that brings additional addressable market for companies, the technology companies like us. For example, we recently just started announced a project with the state government of Utah, one of the states here in the United States, to expand logistics. They have a large logistics coverage, about up to 40% of total U.S. GDP actually transfers through the state of Utah, which is in the middle of the country. Previously, they have lack of connectivity because the cost of it, there's very little people actually in that kind of a transportation hub. It's mostly machine, but because of the fact that 5G and because the proliferation of the edge, they found that cost effective enough that they're going to cover this. So it becomes opportunity for everybody sitting at the table here. And also the reason is not just the connectivity, they also demand very vertically focused, like very logistics centric type of application that previously we have never done for the network. There was no reason to do it. But now there's a supply chain constraint. There's all this issue that brought on the last few years. And the fact that you do have a network, you have a 5G network now, allows this kind of network to be deployed and allows, most importantly, the kind of application to be developed that leveraging the underlying network telemetry. So that's all of a sudden becomes a reality, becomes additional market that all the ecosystem can take part in. So for us, it's very exciting. It's our bread and butter cloud business and enterprise business, but it also brings us significant expansion of the networking platform that we are currently supplying. So all around, we see this as a very large opportunity for the entire ecosystem, including Intel.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and great point about expanding the potential there. Now, as we all know, the CSPs are increasingly turning to the public cloud to support their edge plans. But what are the pros and cons of this approach? Rupesh, let's start with you.
I think, we all touched upon it, right? If you look at just the amount of data, the amount of information, the shifts of the workloads, etc., right? You need the ability to be super resilient and diversified, but also the scale and the expandability is very important. So that is, one of the pros as we think about putting a network clouds in scalable platforms, right? And the public clouds provide some of that inherent to the platform, right? They also have a level of distribution or distributed architecture that allows some resiliency. And with all of this kind of shifting at the edge of the network, you need a common middleware that is going to be important because those workloads are going to shift back and forth and be able to touch on the edge of the network also. So that are all the positives that we're seeing. We have, great relationships with many providers in this space. We've been public with some of the news with Microsoft, where we announced a private 5G edge capability or the network cloud capability, etc. And then I think it's an opportunity for all of us, which is more where we need to go, is how do you customize some of these things? Because some of the enterprise needs are a little bit different, right? When I'm serving a government entity, and the way we built the FirstNet network was very different than how we have our macro 5G network. So there is an element of kind of creating the network capabilities that are now becoming more and more vertical or use case centric because of the growth and the adoption, but also the characteristics that are needed. So the way FirstNet is taking care of the first responders and others on that network with priorities and other feature functionality is very different and unique. So I think a lot of opportunity to leverage the scale, but we need to think about, how do you kind of make product fit or fit for use type of capabilities available on those platforms.
Okay, interesting. And Manish, what's your view on the relationship between the CSPs and the public cloud platforms at the edge?
I think it's a very healthy one. We are seeing a tremendous amount of traction in terms of CSPs taking advantage of the fundamental capabilities that the cloud providers provide in terms of scalability, resiliency, and things that Rupesh spoke about. But I also see that we are all entering into a new era of transformation. Again, I put enterprise at the front and center of that. Uh, if you just look at the macro situation that we are all in, where the talent shortage is so huge across the board, not just in the technology industry, but in every industry, that the need for serious amount of automation is going to really drive a lot of transformation initiatives. So definitely from what I have observed, and like Rupesh mentioned, is that CSPs has very much welcomed the participation of the cloud industry in helping drive their expertise around automation, their expertise around building resilience, expertise around scalable type of infrastructures, and expanding that and bringing it closer and closer to the customers. I see this to be a very healthy trend from the industry point of view, but a huge opportunity to exploit together the capabilities of the cloud, the capabilities of the CSPs who have the assets to build the infrastructure. And we believe the role that we as a system integrator will play in bringing those all things together and leveraging the ecosystem in a way that the transformation journeys for the customers can be taken on. I think that really is the right recipe, right mix to be able to really exploit this new era of transformation that we are just barely embarking on.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of gains to be had for everybody, it would seem. And Caroline, what's your view? I mean, should the CSPs be going all in with the hyperscalers?
I think the relationship, like Rupesh said, is very symbiotic. The hyperscalers have a large reach, has a reach to the developers community, and that's one of the things they can bring to this relationship. But the CSPs clearly can have the network knowledge, and you can provide the SLA, for example, to from the network layer all the way up. The telemetry will give the hyperscaler the edge that they need to win the business. But we can't, like Manish said, that there's a talent shortage everywhere. We can't ignore the fact that they do have a large reach to the developer community, and that's one area I think by us coming together, by the CSPs and hyperscales coming together, it's a win-win. It's a very symbiotic relationship. We're not going to be able to recreate the kind of developer community, but we should reach to them and reach out, especially the fact that we coming from the 5G world. We understand the network. We can provide them the information that they need to optimize their application performance. So I think it definitely is. It's very good win-win relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly what we're hearing from all parties at the moment. They really want each other to make the most of this opportunity. Now, here's a question for you, Rupesh. What have you done well in the edge space to date? I mean, do you have any innovative edge success stories to share?
Sure. Lots of them, right? And we've been, early on this journey. Just one thing I want to build upon what Manish said with all the shortage, et cetera. I think someday soon a university is going to come up with a program that is called Intelligent Edge, right? Just like cybersecurity is focused on, creating the people and the knowledge and the talent. So early days for AT&T, we started to make investments in, again, going back to my construct of the customer edge and the network edge, and I'll give example in each. So let's start with what we have done in the customer edge. So on the customer edge, we rolled out a product capability called AT&T MEC, which is basically a multi-access edge computing capability that takes our sort of, wireless network assets and brings it right at the factory floor or a large venue, and then allows the endpoints to really come securely on board of the network. And then you can determine how much of the processing has to be localized because of, Carolyn touched upon it, some of the requirements of data security, et cetera, right? So if I have a large semiconductor plant, I want to make sure that none of my information, goes out of that location. So whether it is zero trust from a security perspective or zero tolerance from a data security perspective. And we've done those deployments. The customers are welcoming those and saying, look, you've changed what I needed to do, both in terms of just the number of endpoints that are coming onto the network, but the efficiency of my workloads and my data flows. So if I was running a significant number of automated guided vehicles to move pallets or other things on the shop floor, the speed at which they're able to do is far more greater than some of the classic Wi-Fi type of capabilities that were utilized, right? So gains back into business outcomes that we can tie. On the network edge, we have done work with Microsoft, with Google, and others, where we have brought the 5G network at the same sort of physical layer and locations where the compute, storage, and the edges are. Again, focusing on significantly improving the low latency aspects for the applications, and we are starting to see good momentum, whether it is a video use case or a computer vision use case or a autonomous vehicle use case, etc. So I think a lot more innovation will continue to be in this space, but here is an example on customer edge, network edge.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. Now, of course, there's a lot of innovation going on here. It's a very exciting time, but at the end of the day, this is a business as well. So what new use cases is the combination of 5G and edge enabling, and how can the CSPs monetize these emerging use cases? Rupesh, let's start with you.
The monetization is a function of this concept of premium connectivity, right? We know that there are many use cases where creating a high-speed highway on the network is important, right? So if I want to, do a dynamic QoS capability or an uplink capability where I need to upload video or other services, or if I want to make sure that for that period of time, the ability for my two endpoints to connect and pass data and deliver an immersive experience is very important, whether it is, a trader trying to make a financial trade, or whether it is a kind of online commercial transaction taking place, etc. So we feel that the monetization opportunities are very much there in terms of the ability to provide premium connectivity and on-demand capabilities going back to the programmable network. And because the use cases are so heavily dependent on the mission criticality of the network, and for that end product to work, there is going to be opportunity for monetization. I think the other thing that I learned was, hey, in order for Meta to be real, it's sort of like Meta is the killer app for 5G, right? So we're going to continue to see innovation both on the consumer and the entertainment side, and then some of that also in the enterprise side, whether it is training or other things that need to be done in the manufacturing space or in the healthcare space or in the retail space or financial services, etc. And that is how we will continue to focus from a experience and monetization.
Okay, great. Yeah, and let's not forget the fun and entertainment side of this as well. And Caroline, how are you seeing 5G and the edge coming together in terms of new use cases and the potential for new business opportunities?
Actually, we talked quite a bit about the new use cases. Metaverse definitely is one. Everybody seems to be focusing that a lot. I was recently in Washington, D.C. with a lot of our federal government on the defense side. A lot of interest in how do we make this more of a tactical network so that the warfighters have access to real-time information. So all of those are very much back to what Rupesh said. Ultimately, the CSPs are the ones controls the SLA at the most fundamental layer, which is the networking layer, and the 5G network layer. No one else knows that. I think that's a really great way to monetize it. We see many different applications in the previously we don't see before. The verticals decided that agriculture is one, like precision agriculture started popping up. That was not there before. So the innovation, because all the issues we're seeing with the climate change, and don't forget sustainability. A lot of people, the organization have to get to sustainability, water usage, electricity usage. Many times they need data. All that data is provided because of the fact that there's connectivity. There's a rich connectivity and there's edge presence that allow us analyzing the data in real time. So the proliferation of edge, proliferation of vertical use cases, but all hinges upon the fact that you need to have a network there. You need to have a network providing certain service level guarantee. And that's where CSPs like AT&T, like Rupesh come in to provide that. And it's an opportunity for us to monetize. And monetize not in a way is bad. Monetize in a way that makes it such that it's meaningful to deploy this kind of network. So I think net it's really an excellent opportunity for us for the telcos to transform ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's all about enabling the opportunities and the innovation to happen. And Manish, let's leave the final words to you. How do you see this developing? What are the business opportunities here?
Absolutely. I want to just state a couple of things. One is 5G, so we kind of saw 3G as a connectivity network, 4G as a network for video. What we have defined, and at least I keep saying, is that 5G is really about experience network. It's really aimed and designed and created to deliver experiences for the customers, which could be, again, consumers or the enterprises. And when it comes to the applications and the use cases that we are talking about, one of the fortunate positions that we are in, that we work with the Fortune 500 enterprise customers day in and day out as part of their digital transformation journeys. And what we are seeing is that bringing the 5G and the digital transformation journeys together creates a tremendous value for them. And that's where the monetization opportunities come from. We create value for them, the monetization will happen itself. And we can talk about all sorts of industries. You talk about manufacturing industries where there are several use cases that are shaping up very well. Security and surveillances, being able to do the maintenance and repair operations, which are more automated, more predictive in nature. The specific use case that Rupesh spoke about was the AGV, and how the AGV vehicles are being more optimally used. We are looking at in a auto manufacturing how to do a paint detection with a higher level of efficiency, so that reduces the fault as the vehicles are produced. You look at the assembly lines and how you can improve the assembly lines performance, particularly the faulty components into the assembly line can be thrown out faster and improves efficiency there. We are looking at the logistics industry, where docking and inventory of the material is a huge challenge, with millions and millions of goods and service goods that are coming into this container and the ports. Being able to automate them and inventory them through just the video inspection, again, security and surveillance as the trucks are moving goods in and out of those warehouses. You look at connected mines type of industry. So every industry that you touch it, where we are finding fundamentally, if we can get the infrastructure reliable and extend it to all the way to the machines, you can put the local compute and the vision analytics capability, so that you can make local decisions, and then you open it up for anybody to start building those niche applications. We ourselves are engaged in at least 40 to 50 customers, helping them drive those kind of transformation journeys. And we believe that it's just, again, the start. The use cases are plenty, and the network and 5G will play the most fundamental role in delivering those kind of experiences that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's clear that there's really great potential here with the intelligent edge, and we've heard a lot today, great insights, great use cases of what's come early in the market and what's still to come down the line. So I just want to thank you all for a great session today. Thank you, Caroline, Rupesh, and Manish, for joining us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.